Good morning, happy Sabbath. We're here once again with another session of caring for your mind. Have you ever wondered how some people do it? Have you seen that person who has gone through a lot of turmoil in their life, have loved a lot of people and lost them to tragic events, and they seem to be happy and striving in their life, and you're like, how do they do that? Well, there is a word for that: resilience. So resilience refers to the positive adaptation or the ability to maintain or regain mental health despite experiencing adversity. We're created to be resilient, to adapt to the challenges in our lives. So it's a positive adaptation. That means that stresses are going to come. That's part of our lives. But we will find a way to deal with each of those stressors. Resilience is like a buffer. It helps us maintain psychological and physical well-being despite of all the challenges that come our way. It's associated with our mental health and even our physical health. So it helps us adjust psychologically and socially to the challenges that we face in our lives. So this is not something that is permanent and all the time we're feeling resilient. It's a dynamic construct. That means that it's interacting with situations in our lives. In the environment, socially, even our genetics play a role in how resilient we are. So factors that modulate some of these resiliences is our ability to be strong and resistant under stress, our ability to adapt, even a mental toughness that comes into play to help us go through difficult times. So resilience is a major component in helping us maintain a healthy mental and physical well-being. It helps us to accept the reality of our situation. In part, it actually is some of the components that we were talking about last week about mindfulness. It's the way we look at things. We're able to confront the situations in our lives and detach from those emotions and not take it personally, not making the circumstances our own. You're able to see a difference in the people who are resilient. One of the ways that you see the difference is how they look at the situation. In psychology, we call it locus of control. So the person who is resilient tends to have a balanced way of looking at who is responsible for the things that are happening in their lives. So let me explain this. Internal locus of control is saying, I'm responsible for this. External locus of control is something outside myself, is this. And it's actually having a realistic view of that. In other words, do I have control over the circumstances or not? Taking responsibility for what you have control over and not taking responsibility for what is not your responsibility, but also not blaming other people and not being victims to the circumstances of their life and all around them. So when you think about resilience, it is something that you can see in the behavior. This was actually found out when we look at children. You know, children go through very difficult times. Many kids suffer depression, anxiety, and all those things, but worse yet, traumatic events happening in their lives where they're living in situations where they are being abused, and you still see them strive and move forward. And so one of the ways that we look at how kids do well, we look at, okay, let me see, how are their academic performance? How is their relationship with others, their behavior at schools? Are they able to regulate their emotions? Are they socially competent and able to deal with things around them and have good relationship with other kids? And you're able to see some kids thriving and moving forward and doing well under very difficult circumstances. They have this disposition of them that it gives them strength. As adults, we can look at this situation and say, okay, when we look at difficult situations in our lives, we can say, I'm going to decide to have meaning out of this situation. I've gone through my own share of difficult times. I'm sure you have. What do you make of those difficult times? Do you say, well, I learned a lot through them. Did you get something out of it? Did you grow? Did you change during those circumstances? One of the things that you see in people who are resilient is that they're able to see a benefit out of adversity. They're able to find meaning in the midst of difficult circumstances. And when they're done with that adversity, you see them thriving. They not only go back to previous levels of functioning and how well they were doing, but they're doing even better because they have learned from those circumstances. They grow. They increase their appreciation for life. They get closer to the intimate relationships that they have because they know they're fragile and they can be lost. So they try to build those relationships. They have a greater sense of personal strength because they have known that they have gone through a difficult time and they have come across to the other side and done it successfully. They find new opportunities for growth. And above all, it increases their spiritual development because through those moments, they depended on God. So it's amazing to see how resilience is such a powerful tool in helping people maintain physical, emotional, psychological well-being. That's why I bring it up today, because we live in difficult times. How do we go through these difficult times? How do we maintain a resilient spirit? Well, we do it in different ways. Managing the stress that we have in our lives. Having goals, problem solving. When we are confronted with problems, we try to find solutions. We look at the situation and try to look at what are the positive things that are there. Yes, even in situations that seem totally negative, what is it that you can learn from it? Find the meaning in the midst of all that. So resilience can help us overcome a lot of things in our lives that are difficult. Some people have innate, so they are born with some of this, but the reality is this, that we can build this resiliency in ourselves. So we can do this by doing different things. I'm going to go over a few of them. Number one, you can make connections. One of the things that we have found out, especially working with children, but adults as well, is that when we have connection with other people, relationships that are healthy and strong, we're close to our family member, close to friends, at least one significant person in our lives, that's going to be a very important component in helping us build resilience, because we have support. We have people who care. We have people who listen. And that strengthens our resilience. So being part of a group, even a community church, is very, very important. Number two, we can avoid seeing a crisis as an insurmountable problem. Well, there's times that there's problems. You cannot change them. So they're highly stressful times, but you can decide how you're going to respond to it. You might not be able to do anything about the situation to change it, but you definitely can decide how to respond to the situation and the meaning you're going to attribute to that situation. So you're looking beyond the present moment to the future circumstances and see if you can make something better out of that situation. It might be subtle ways, but it can be very useful. Then you can accept that change is part of living. You know, when we lose someone we love, it doesn't matter at what age. If they live a full life, great, but still painful. We cannot change those adverse situations when we lose the people we love. But we can decide to accept that change is part of our life. Another way of building resilience is moving towards our goals in our lives. Instead of sitting hopeless without being able to do anything about how we're reacting to the circumstances in our lives and being victims to our circumstances, we can have goals. Do something regularly that enables you to move forward. Instead of focusing in what is going on or something that you cannot control, focus is what can I do to move forward in my life to achieve the goals that I have set for myself. Something else we can do to build our resilience is to take decisive action. There's moments that we might feel like a deer caught in the headlights because of the circumstances are so overwhelming. But at times we need to detach from the problems that are happening, the stress that is happening all around us, and wishing things to go away, and just take action. What is it that is the first thing you can do and is right there available for you to do? Next, look for opportunities for self-discovery. These are difficult times. What can I learn from this situation? How can I grow? Many times we lose opportunities to improve our relationships. Sometimes the opposite happens. We lose those. But in those difficult times, we can grow spiritually, grow closer to God, and appreciate more the life you have. Next, nurture a positive view of yourself. You know, at times I wonder how, as Christians, we can put ourselves down when we have a God of the universe who came down and gave his life for you and me. That's how valuable we are. So we should develop confidence in that love. So nurture a positive view of yourself. View yourself as God views you. Not perfect, but love immensely. So keep things in the perspective. When we're facing painful events and stressful circumstances, it's very difficult to see anything else. Sometimes we need to look at the long perspective, beyond the circumstances, and avoid blowing things out of proportion, because sometimes we can do that. Then maintain a hopeful outlook. Be optimistic. Instead of looking, oh, this is the worst thing that's going to happen, nothing is good is going to come out of this. What the God says, from every circumstance, of the worst of them, he can bring something good out of it. And that's the God we trust. So try to visualize what is that you want, rather than still worrying about what you fear and the worst case scenario. Take care of yourself. That's the other thing that we need to do for resiliency. Pay attention to your needs, to your feelings. Engage in activities that are enjoyable and relaxing. Exercise. Take care of yourself. Keep your mind and body healthy. These will help you deal better with circumstances and challenges, and it gives you more resiliency. So there's so many different things that we can do to help ourselves become more resilient. Next week, we're going to conclude our series, Caring for Your Mind, with the topic of self-compassion. Please join us there, because I think self-compassion is a great tool that we need to maintain a healthy mind and also to be resilient. See you next week.